My mother is a Shankel. She's a Shankel. And if you come from this part of the country, that means something. Um, there's a historical plaque out close to the Sabine River that basically talks about the story. It's lore. I mean, it's basically Jim and Winnie Shankel were slaves in Mississippi, and Winnie got sold to Texas, and Jim escaped from the plantation and went west. He didn't go north, he went west and found Winnie, and Winnie convinced her master to buy Jim. And what resulted was eventually 5,000 acres of land when they were freed, and they founded the community of Shankleville, and they created through their children and legacy, 4 or 5 different freedom colonies that basically took off from their legacy. Incredible people, and my mother's uh, grandmother was Cora Shankel, who became Cora Coleman through her marriage to Cuffy Coleman. And uh, one of the schools that we go by that still stands in Huff Creek is where George and Emmeline Shankel, Cora and Cuffy's, actually Cora's parents are buried. So it's like I'm fifth generation from that. My daughters are sixth generation. They came in, and that story took off in the 1820s. And they were born in like the 1817, 1860. I mean, almost 200 years ago. And this is on my mother's side. I mean, my father goes back to George and Rachel. James, my father's family goes back to James and Rachel Frazier in 1819, 1820 in Virginia, and my mother's family goes back to Jim and Winnie Shankel, and so my mother went to a Rosenwald school. They met in 12th grade, and so, I mean, how exactly am I not supposed to perform? How am I not supposed to make something of my life? How are my daughters possibly not not going to be successful? How do they not have the pressure on them to make something of their lives? They literally have 2 centuries of expectations on them. And so my parents meeting at Jasper in preparation for Prairie View met each other. My mother was valedictorian, and my father was salutatorian. And they went off to Prairie View, and they went off into the military and their life. And yes, it was a pressure cooker. My dad served in 2 wars, Vietnam and Korea. He was an infantry officer. He was an airborne officer, one of the first black officers in the 82nd Airborne. He won, Bronze Star for combat. They were in Africa. I mean, it was crushing pressure. And so, my mother's condition was grave many times. But I got to tell you, they were married for something like 52 years, and never did she ever go home. She always traveled with him. She was always there. It wasn't pleasant sometimes, but she was resolute in being part of that. And I'll never forget, she even tells the story of when they had to make a decision whether he was going to come home and be a teacher in East Texas or he was going to stay in the military. And she was right there making the decision, yeah, we'll stay. Even though I think it was not a great thing for her health. But they stayed. They stuck it out. And I'm the result of that. Everything that I've accomplished is the result of their mutual decision. I'm very proud of that.